Having COVID and afterward recovering from that has been quite interesting, or I should say very profound or very important. I'm not sure if I can capture the whole of it, but I want to try. When I was recovering, I appreciated everything surrounding me, especially when you are isolated and have a moment to go outside, even watching the fly on the blue sky, the trees. There's an appreciation of life, and being confined made me to feel more humble, perhaps. How lucky I am. The other thing I remember thinking is thinking backward, my young days, and also related to my work as a nuclear engineer. I was impressed and was idealistic in a way that the technology can bring out lots of good stuff. So I put myself to do work in a nuclear field, even visiting Fukushima Nuclear Power Plant while it's building plant number 3, but also visiting plant number 1, as well as visiting other nuclear power plant operating at the time. This is 1970s. For whatever reason, even though I had a great experience in California with the GE engineers and representing Toshiba for the joint technology development work, I decided to leave and go into business. The reason why I felt like leaving is that, well, to say it simply, even if I can design 15 nuclear power plants in my life, what's the point of it? Without me, many people can do it. Plus, there are lots of bright people. And somehow I wasn't inspired. So I looked for other opportunities, and from engineering I went into business. When graduating Stanford, I went to a bookstore called Printers Inc. in Palo Alto. Accidentally, I found a book by Daisetsu Suzuki, Zen and Japanese Culture, and that triggered me interest. So even though I did lots of work with Boston Consulting Group, and I've written books, waste elimination, to the production system, and total quality management, and all the other stuff I've done, I kept up with this spiritual end of the spectrum. And come to think about it, after years of working, I found that the spiritual end to write books and went around for seminar had a lots of communication, spiritual and the work-related issue are combined. The idea is for people to have their destiny, self-managing, and help each other as customers and suppliers. And whether it's in business or anything about life, that's ideal. And if we don't use those skills, it's a problem for the society. So empowerment, ownership, leadership related to that was important. And back behind it, for those 40 years I have worked, had this spiritual interest to extract the creativity, the talent of people, to appreciate their talent when they do the work, live their life, and even to manage their own life. So that's the background. And when I went through this COVID, I realized, especially when we had this Fukushima accident, nuclear power accident, I was in New Zealand at the time. and all the effort and all the wonderful experiment I was involved in, computer simulation, turned out to be not that beneficial, to say the least. That's shaken my life in a way, even though I was away from nuclear for, I don't know, maybe 30 years before that. But still, that's the potential failure as humans. Even if there are lots of bright people working together, things can go wrong. We don't have the infinite knowledge, and we have to be humble, open, relate to what the intuition would tell us. Science is not totally reliable method. On appearance, just like as we use our brain, we think logically, and logic is everything. But can you cover all the angles of the logic and all the logics that we can think of? So that's the case of the nuclear Fukushima, my experience. But when I went through the COVID, somewhat similar, I was cautious. I took care of myself in New Zealand for 2.5 years, avoiding the exposure to COVID. And afterward, I thought, well, everything is turning out to be okay. Plus, I need to do some green card work, so I had to come back to the U.S. So 3 months ago, I came back. And I wasn't paying attention because I thought I checked enough. My friends tell me the situation, how it is. And I didn't pay much attention. So I was playing pickleball, having a great time, perfect weather, and doing exercise. But I got the COVID, and just a few days later I realized that there was news about the BA.5, the variant, which caused my problem. I can tell by the symptom, my throat was hurting like a fire, and the temperature was high, coughing, and runny nose. Not more than that, so I was good enough to go through it. And after 3-4 days, I'm recovering. So it's quite different from the case of the nuclear and Fukushima, but the same in terms of my complacency in this case, of assuming that I know something about COVID. So I took time, digested what happened, and that's another lesson I picked up, that our mind, the logic, complacency, and all of that can be dangerous. But this COVID situation gave me a very interesting and important opportunity for me to revisit what I went through, the spiritual pursuit. When I had this awakening experience in year 2000, I was more like in euphoria, blissful sense for a week or more. And I thought I found something. Then I start to study. I start to live in the work and personal life with some change in my mind. So that what I did was I didn't want to lose the sense of what I thought I gained, because I had a lot of studying of the Buddhism and meditation and Zen. So I had some level of conviction or understanding of what happened, but that was not good enough. So I spent another 8 years, 10 years, perhaps 70% of the time I spent reading a bunch of books and connecting to a bunch of people, exchanging ideas to explain what happened in that awakening moment, why, and what I got out of it. After 10 years or so, I thought I came to the conclusion, because I have studied not just the Zen and Buddhism and the Shin Buddhism, but also Sufi and Hinduism and Taoism and Confucianism and Christianity. So I came up with this idea that the point is that we have to live our life as if to follow the will of the universe. The term I thought at the time, I used the word, thy will be done. Thy typically in the sense of God. But I thought this is to be replaced by the law of the universe, following whatever the Dhamma, they call it, manifesting, is the reason of our existence, the way we can live, and there's no question about it. So with that conviction, I thought I got it all. So the funny thing, maybe this is the complacency again, things I thought, which is in my mind, that's a tricky thing. You shouldn't trust the mind so easily. But anyway, after 10 years of fair amount of, actually quite a bit of study and posting things and summarizing and making files and all of that, I came to that. And whatever the reason it happened, I'm not going into detail, but this is the point that I want to go back to the world and see if I can swim well with the notion of bodhisattva, if I can do something for the society. So I had a divorce and then went into the new world, so to speak, to see what's going to be the case. That may have been another overconfidence or complacency, because that level of understanding in the mind may be limited. But whatever the case, I thought I did enough of the research and I wanted to test it, which by itself may not be a bad idea, because it's like a middle way. If you're too relaxed, you want to push it. And if you're pushing too much, you want to come back. It's like a plan to check act cycle. You do things and learning and checking and understanding what happened and keep on adjusting your passage. So I start to do that. Instead of having a peaceful life in the condition I had, which I thought may not be that interesting to spend the rest of my life. So after divorce, I went back into the world and had some relationship and lived here and there. So by itself was very educational, to the point it was painful here and there. So I realized that my level of understanding, because the mind's understanding is very dangerous to believe if that's really is the understanding. My understanding was limited. That's what I synthesize, and that's what I feel, or how I feel, while I'm here in the process of the recovery from COVID. So the pain is good for the gain, if we can digest, so that you don't go too overboard to be complacent again. So I've gone through that several times, at least a few times in my life in a major manner, and that's where I stand. So right now, in summary, what I say is this. I think I may have mentioned elsewhere that I revisited many books as if I was meeting my old friends. That's too easy to say that way, but Daisetsu Suzuki or Nakayama, the Buddha's teaching, different sutras, and all of those. I've gone through the last 3 months, because when I was in New Zealand, I didn't have access to the books, but here I have. There are lots of underlying parts that I can go over, and as if I was reacquainting myself with the friends. And I felt the energy is flowing, and clarifying. I felt so happy to be in this situation, to revisit after the divorce, which was about 10 years ago. So this isolation is also accentuated those learning, and looking at from different angle, I could see what this Dhamma is and how the mind should be well disciplined in a rational manner, so that there's alignment. I call it two universes, one in the mind, and the orientation and how you use the mind has to be logically good and society-wise makes sense. So that's like a plan to check that you can do, but also relating to all the teachings by those Buddha or Christ and Taoist and so on and so forth. So they are wise persons record as if in the books to teach me, acquaint me with those, as if I was feeling like a liveliness, excitement, blissfulness that I felt, as if to washing my whole body and mind in that process. So what I feel is this. There's a 10 Oxharding picture explaining the steps of the spiritual pursuit advancement. There's also 10 stages sutra, somewhat similar. And I could relate to the transformation process looking at those sutras, which I may want to come back and talk about. And I see me in a way like this, that I was starting from step 1, 2, 3, and some enlightenment or awakening, and studying and further. And then, for whatever reason, I start to go backward after I put myself into the new world and see how I can swim. And that caused more trouble in a way to acquaint myself to this spiritual path. So there's a saying that because of the delusion, our true self, a truthful nature, is covered. That's a very simple saying. I think it's Bodhidharma who said that. And that exactly is the cleansing or transformation process of purification of the mind, connected to the root of who we are, where the law of universe manifests. So over-dependence on the mind, even if I think it's rational and understand, it may be just mind understanding, and that understanding has to be deeply connected to the root of who we are, the true self, the source, connected to the laws of the universe. So if I say it in a few more words, through going through this process, I feel being cleansed and excited or blissful, that I can relate to the words very immediately, as if there's a sense of vibration and the clarity. And then I also know that clarity can be washed away or covered by the delusion, by the wrong use of mind. So I look at this, one of the Buddha's book, and talking about, and this is related to the Eight Noble Path, if you want to connect to that. Use the right word and do the right conduct. It's simple, but I can deceive myself, thinking I know it, but knowing is not the same as doing. So no lying, no cheating, and so on. And the conduct-wise, very truthful. Nothing violating the good conduct. So I'm at the space where I'm revisiting this whole Dhamma, right conduct. And that's where I am. So given the future is unknown, I want to maintain me aligned to this thinking and come revisit over and over with the right conduct, right word, right Dharma, rational thinking, and as if all the friends and the books are connecting to me beyond the time and space. It's living or trying to live within me without delusionally thought. And that's the framework. I want to keep it and work sincerely and truthfully to move forward in this path. That's my vow for myself to move on this journey connected to the Dhamma, the laws of universe, with the right use of mind. Thank you.